It was the last day of summer break when the email arrived. Subject line curt, family gathering. Please RSVP by Friday. I stared at the glowing screen, heart thudding. Friday was tomorrow. By then, I'd be back in my tiny studio apartment in the city, dyeing my hair bright red because new semester, new me, and writing footnotes under a mountain of sociology readings. My brother, on the other hand, my older brother Lucas, was building a life I could only envy: a paragliding trip in Switzerland, a Ferrari shootout in the Mojave, and now, apparently, a luxury villa in our parents' hometown. We have something special to show you, Mom's email had promised, which sounded innocent enough until you opened the attachment. There he was, a sweeping aerial photo of a gleaming Mediterranean-style villa, terracotta roof tiles matched by the same brownstone walls, flanked by lean cypress trees and a sea-blue infinity pool. Underneath, a line in italics, yours, Lucas. I clicked through the next images: palm-shaded driveways, an elevator straight from the garage to the master suite, an outdoor theater, a spa wing with a waterfall steam room, and beyond it all, a stretch of private beach. It was so over the top it made me gasp. My phone pinged. Lucas had texted, "Can't wait to show you your new parking spot." I felt something sour in my gut. I typed back, "Great, see you tomorrow." My fingers trembled. I closed the laptop and swiveled in my squeaky desk chair, staring at the peeling wallpaper of my bedroom wall, wishing I could wallpaper my life over too. Friday morning, I arrived in Glenridge, our childhood town tucked into the hills above the coast, by bus. The air smelled of eucalyptus and salt, and I clutched my carry-on in the empty lot behind the train station, where my uncle's old Subaru waited. He greeted me with an awkward half-hug, eyes darting to my single suitcase, then to the driveway beyond. "Hey kiddo," he said. "Your folks are busy." I smiled tightly. "Mom said there's a surprise." He cleared his throat. "Just brace yourself." I hopped into the passenger seat, and he drove us through winding streets lined with magnolias and red tile bungalows until we crested a hill. Below lay the villa, glorious, colossal, humming like a private resort. Surrounding it, smooth asphalt glinted in the sun, an enormous empty parking lot. My heart lurched. "Is that for me?" I whispered. He tapped the steering wheel. "They said you can park anywhere you like. Sleep under the stars," they suggested. I pressed the button to roll down the window and breathed in the smell of new asphalt mixed with ocean breeze. The lot stretched for acres, marked only by faint white lines. There was a single street lamp at the far end, and nothing else. I swallowed. "They left me a parking lot?" He shrugged. "Says it all, doesn't it?" I shook my head. "But why?" Uncle cleared his throat. "Dad, well, they figured Lucas needed the villa, since he's building his own family, your sister-in-law and all that. You're content with the city life, right? They thought a parking lot would remind you where you come from." I stared at the asphalt blanket, heat waves dancing above it. Behind me, the villa's arched windows shimmered like gold frames against the hillside. I felt a wave of vertigo, like my childhood memories had spilled out and evaporated. Uncle pulled into a tiny gravel driveway beside a maintenance shed. "I'm camp host. I'll be here if you need me. Otherwise, they're in the villa." He gestured toward the main house. "Go on in. Clean up. They'll be delighted." I exhaled and nodded. "Thanks." He drove away, leaving me alone in the vast empty lot that felt suddenly claustrophobic. My suitcase felt heavy as I trudged across the asphalt toward the villa's front gates, two immense wrought iron doors left ajar. They swung inward on polished hinges, revealing a courtyard so lush it seemed a mirage: potted citrus trees, fountains with dancing water jets, mosaics of teal and amber tile, marble columns soared overhead, and the air was perfumed with honeysuckle. In the center, my parents stood side by side, Mom in a silk sun hat and Dad in linen slacks, beaming like hosts at a grand opening. Lucas and his radiant wife, Nadia, stood to one side, waving. Nadia's smile was genuine. She waved at me with one hand, the other draped around Lucas's waist. My throat tightened. I forced a smile and approached. "Hi." Mom rushed forward and enveloped me in a hug that knocked my suitcase askew. Her straw hat brushed my hair. "Darling, you made it! Welcome home!" I stepped back, brushing invisible soot off my jeans. "Thanks. This is amazing," she laughed. "Sit down, sit. We have champagne and orange juice from the garden, for you." She motioned to a wrought iron table laden with flutes tinted pink by sunset. I sat in a chair so comfortable it seemed padded by clouds. Dad joined, clapping his hands. "Angie, isn't it spectacular? Your brother deserves a place to raise his children." I blinked. "Children?" Lucas's grin faltered. "We're not there yet. But soon, he winked at Nadia, whose hand hovered over her belly. My stomach churned. The news felt like a bullet. I managed a weak smile. Of course. Nadia slid into the chair across from me, her gown trailing like silk. So sorry about the parking lot. It's only temporary. You can park in the garage tonight. Really, please. I hit a shudder. Thanks, but I think this is fine. I gestured at the blacktop. Very spacious. She looked pale. Okay, if you say so. There was a quiet beat. The fountains babbled. Lanterns swung from trellises, casting lantern glow patterns on the stone floor. Mom poured champagne into my flute. Let's toast. To family, to new beginnings. I lifted the glass, drank. The bubbles rushed, tart and unreal, like synthetic optimism. I set the glass down. The bitterness stuck. They insisted I tour the villa, as though showing me off to a queen. Staff in white gloves led the way. Tiled hallways, a library lined with leather-bound books, a music room with a Steinway grand, and finally the master suite, an entire floor with a wraparound terrace. But each room felt like a stage set built for Lucas. It shone under crystal chandeliers, the bed heaving with pillows. I touched the velvety duvet and imagined sleeping there, if only to simulate normalcy, but the thought felt intrusive, like trespassing. Nadia's nursery is ready. Mom cooed at a side door. We stocked it with the heirloom cradle. She peered inside. See how the moonlight will filter through at dawn. I followed reluctantly. The nursery was painted a soft dove gray, with stencils of stars on the ceiling. A plush carpet covered the floor. It was beautiful, but for a child who didn't yet exist. I closed the door. We need to talk, I said to Mom in the hallway. My voice was steady, despite the tremor inside. Why did you leave me an empty parking lot? She blinked, taking a breath. Sweetheart, it wasn't meant as a slight. She smoothed her skirt. We thought you've always loved the city. You said once you'd sleep under the stars in a car if you had to. So we thought you'd appreciate the expanse, the freedom. She smiled. Think of it as your personal campground. I swallowed a laugh, a bitter slug. Campground, huh? Dad appeared. We can get you a tent, fire pit. He bustled forward. Yes, a camping-themed weekend. We could set up glamping gear. He clapped his hands with excitement. I looked at him, at the soaring villa behind, the empty parking lot below, and felt something hard break inside me. Thank you, I said, voice low. But I don't want a camping theme. I stepped away. I tried to summon tears, but they dried on my cheeks. I want to know why I was left out. Mom's eyes widened. She looked at Dad, then at Lucas, who shuffled awkwardly. Nadia's skin paled a second time, and she slipped an arm around him. Then Lucas nodded, as if making a decision. He cleared his throat. Okay, I'll say it. He swallowed. When we sold the old house, you weren't there. He gestured toward the villa. We couldn't get you to move back in, your career, your life in the city. You skipped Mom's 60th and Dad's retirement party. You skipped Christmas 2 years in a row. He grimaced. It hurt them. I felt a flicker of anger. They knew I couldn't get days off school for a Friday family brunch, I told them. They never offered to reschedule. He shook his head. But you chose the city over us. I opened my mouth, then closed it. He was right, in a way I had drifted away. But that didn't give them license to gift one child a villa and the other a lot to sleep under. Is that it? I hurt them, so they hurt me? Mom's lip trembled. Darling. Nadia stepped forward. Angie, I'm sorry. I didn't see how this would look. Lucas and I are so grateful for everything. We didn't think, I repeated. About fairness? About my life here? My heart pounded like a warning drum. I'm your daughter. My life matters too. Silence. The staff hovered like statues. The fountains gurgled behind us. Lucas's eyes glistened. You deserve a home, Angie. And a life here with us. That's the real gift. We'll build you something permanent, right next to the villa. A cottage. A cottage, I echoed, disbelieving. He nodded. With a view of the pool, a rooftop terrace, right beside you. He stepped closer. We don't want to leave you out. Ever. Nadia took my hand. I promise. I looked at them. The strained smiles, the guilt trembling in their eyes. The villa gleamed behind them. A palace built on holding cells of expectation and omission. And beyond, the black expanse waiting for my car. I closed my eyes and let the sea breeze wash over me. Salt, stone, ozone. Maybe I dared to hope I could transform this parking lot into something of my own. A place to park, yes, but also to plant a garden, string lights, watch the sunset over the villa's rooftop. A room with a view for myself, carved out by my own terms. I opened my eyes. A cottage, I said slowly. Okay, let's start there. Lucas's relief was palpable. Mom exhaled. Nadia squeezed my hand. But as I looked at that endless blacktop, I realized the real work was just beginning. Carving a home out of nothing, reclaiming my place in a family that almost forgot I belonged. And that, I knew, would be the most rewarding project of all. The next morning, the first thing I did was walk out onto that vast asphalt expanse with a notebook and a measuring tape. The sun was just rising, casting long, liquid gold reflections off the villa's white stucco walls. In the hush before the household stirred, I paced the lot's perimeter, white lines still crisp, imagining where a humble cottage might go. I sketched rectangles and circles, marked off a 30 by 20 footprint for the main structure, then a smaller 10 by 10 for a workshop. I circled a grove of young olive trees that Mom had planted years ago, deciding to preserve them between cottage and villa. By the time Lucas found me with 2 cups of coffee, I had a blueprint ready. Planning already? He asked, eyes blinking against the dawn light. Can't waste time, I said, handing him a cup. He unwrapped his fingers around the warm mug and surveyed my scribbles. This looks solid. I mean it, I said. I want something small, efficient, cozy. A bedroom, bath, kitchenette, and a loft workspace for writing. Plus that terrace, definitely a terrace. I sketched a jagged line off the roof, panoramic view of the pool and the sea beyond. A little cantilever over the lot's edge. Lucas whistled. I love the cantilever idea. Let's pitch it to Dad and Mom. He took a sip. I'll round up an architect and a builder. Nadia's uncle's firm does sustainable cottages. I'll call them. I nodded. Actually, can we talk budget? I don't want the villa next door to overshadow my place, but I also don't want to bankrupt them. He grinned. Don't worry, they've set aside a fund, your inheritance, beyond the villa. It's been waiting for you. He tapped his ear. Dad and I arranged it last night. They felt awful. Relief glowed through me. That's incredible. I hugged him, careful of the coffee. Thank you. Over the next week, our little construction task force swung into action. Lucas's uncle, Javier, visited with his partner, Maria, a soft-spoken green builder who specialized in tiny homes and passive solar design. She knelt in the gravel beside the parking lot and tested the soil. Hard-packed, she murmured. We'll need to import topsoil for a garden bed, but foundation can sit on piers. Minimal excavation. She sketched circles for pier locations and explained how to run rainwater from the terrace into a cistern for laundry and irrigation. Everything felt practical and right. Dad arrived one afternoon, carrying a ledger. Here's the budget, he announced, holding out a sheaf of papers. Line items for construction, finishes, permits. We'll cover excess costs. Don't worry about overruns. He set the papers on a battered folding table we'd rescued from the villa's storage wing. Treat it as a shared legacy project. Mom hovered with a tray of iced tea. You need to see this, she said, handing me a photo album. Inside were renderings from the architect. A white cedar exterior, floor-to-ceiling windows facing east. A steel-framed terrace jutting out like a glass-walled treehouse. Passive solar louvers on the south side. Clerestory windows in the loft for morning light. It was exactly what I'd sketched, only magnified by professional polish. I ran my finger along the lines. This is perfect. I looked up, blinking through tears. Thank you for believing in me. She squeezed my hand. We're sorry it took us so long to see you needed your own place. Construction began in earnest 2 days later. Heavy machinery arrived, an excavator for the pier holes, a flatbed with timber beams, and a mini crane to lift roof joists. I spent mornings on site, wearing a hard hat borrowed from Javier and work gloves stitched with my initials. I turned the compost heap near the olive trees into raised planters, planting rosemary and lavender, envisioning the scent they'd fill the breeze with. I laid out pavers for a walkway that led from villa gate to cottage door, making sure no one would have to trudge through gravel. At lunchtime, I sat with the builders under a temporary canopy. We shared sandwiches and swapped stories. I learned that Eduardo, the foreman, had built his first cabin at age 15 with his grandfather. That Rosa, the carpenter, preferred reclaimed wood because it has history like us. Their laughter and the clatter of tools became a new soundtrack for my life here. Lucas dropped by each afternoon, briefcase in hand, thrusting his phone at me. Quick decision, do you want stainless steel railings or cable rail? I vote cable. I eyed the renderings on his screen. Cable rail, sleek. Reminds me of the villa's modern wing. He grinned. Go for it. Nadia and my niece, little Sophia, arrived for a weekend visit. Sophia toddled through the site, toddling into my legs with her stuffed bear. Mimi's house? She asked, pointing at the beams. I scooped her up. That's right, sweetheart. My house. She giggled and patted the wood. Nice. I realized then, this wasn't just about the structure. It was about stake in family land. A sense of rootedness I'd lacked. Every bolt driven, every beam lifted, anchored me. 2 weeks in, a hiccup. The local planning office informed us we needed a special variance because our terrace cantilever extended over 5 feet beyond the property line. Without it, they might halt construction. Panic clawed at me. I met with the planning officer, Miss Hernandez, in her cramped office flanked by zoning maps. She traced a highlighter around my lot. It's tight. The villa's boundary was grandfathered in from a 1960s ordinance, but new codes don't allow this projection. She frowned. You can apply for a variance, public hearing, neighbor notices. It can take months. I swallowed. But the frame's up already. I gestured through the window at the half-built terrace above frames. She sighed. Submit the application today, or I'll have to issue a stop work order. My chest tightened. I called Lucas. He arrived within the hour, filing paperwork at my site office. A repurposed garden shed with plans tacked on the wall. We filled out forms, attached letters of support from the villa's staff and the nearby neighbors whose windows faced the lot. We wrote a heartfelt statement. The cantilever embodies modern design that complements the villa's aesthetic and enhances accessibility to the view. We respectfully request a variance. We filed it and exhaled. That evening, as the sky turned rose and gold, I sat on a makeshift platform, looking out from the future terrace. Below the lot was half skylight, half dust. I texted my roommate back in the city, got the variance started. Might be here a while. She replied with an avocado emoji and proud of you. I set my phone aside, closed my eyes, and listened. The breeze riffled through olive leaves, distant waves crashed, hammers tapped like staccato hearts. My new life was taking shape in raw materials and red tape, in sweat and shared ambition. And though uncertainty lingered, waiting for approvals, watching permits, it felt more alive than any city apartment I'd ever rented. The public hearing rolled around on a gray Wednesday. I'd borrowed a pair of chinos and a blazer, my first grown-up business outfit, and Lucas arrived with fresh coffee. Nadia held my hand as we entered the community center. About 20 neighbors, planners, and curious passersby sat in folding chairs, some in suits, others in flip-flops. The air smelled of carpet and stale donuts. When our turn came, I stepped to the podium. My heart pounded louder than the projector's hum. I cleared my throat. Good afternoon. I'm Angela Martinez, and I'm here to request a variance for the cantilevered terrace of my new cottage at 12 Cypress Road. I clicked the slideshow, renderings, site maps, letters of support. This design is not only architecturally sensitive to the hillside, but it also provides necessary circulation space for my aging parents and my pregnant sister-in-law to enjoy the view safely. Behind me, Lucas beamed. Nadia squeezed my arm. I held my breath as Miss Hernandez, the planning officer, peered at her notes. Then she looked at the audience. Any neighbors wish to speak in favor? A line formed. The villa's gardener praised how the design wouldn't block sun. A retired teacher mentioned how the cottage adds character to the neighborhood. A family down the street said they'd love to watch morning skies from the terrace across the way. When the chair asked if anyone opposed, only one neighbor, a man in a windbreaker, stood. I'm worried about privacy, he said. The terrace would overlook my backyard pool. I stepped forward. We've included frosted glass screens on the eastern edge to ensure privacy. We can add landscaping, taller hedges if needed. He nodded, satisfied. The chair banged the gavel. Variance approved. Relief burst through me like sunshine. I turned to my family, Mom and Dad were weeping softly, Lucas and Nadia were wiping tears, and the audience burst into polite applause. I stepped down and they hugged me, and I realized that this cottage wasn't just my home, it was proof that I belonged here. By month's end, the cottage was nearly complete. The white cedar siding gleamed in the sun. The green roof began to sprout sedum. The terrace jutted out with its steel cables taut. Inside, the loft was furnished with a teak writing desk and a Bob Dylan poster I'd painted as a student. The kitchenette gleamed with white quartz counters and matte black hardware. I placed my old red hair dye tubes on the windowsill, my last tie to the city, and stacked my sociology books on a floating shelf. On the living room floor, still plywood, awaiting hardwood, I unrolled a Persian rug I'd brought from a thrift store haul. I sank to my knees and ran my hands over its worn patterns. My heart was full. This was my parking lot, transformed into home. My first night, we all gathered for a housewarming under cafe lights, strung between olive trees. Mom brought paella, Dad uncorked cava, Lucas lit tiki torches. Nadia smiled as Sophia toddled around, chasing fireflies. I raised a glass, to family always making room for one another. Glasses clinked. Later, as everyone drifted back to the villa for dessert, I lingered alone on the terrace, watching the pool's lights shimmer like a galaxy in the courtyard below. I closed my eyes and breathed eucalyptus, salt, jasmine. I realized that what I had gained, more than a cottage, was the confidence to claim space in my own life. The parking lot, once empty and forbidding, was now the path that led me home. In the coming weeks, we'd finish landscaping, lavender borders, stone steps to the villa gate, a little hammock in the olive grove. And every morning, I'd step outside to that panoramic view, a reminder that though my family's generosity began as an oversight, it grew into something far richer, belonging, co-creation, and the promise of countless dawns under the same sky. I leaned against the railing, smiling at my own reflection in the glass barrier. The villa stood regal behind me, but tonight the cottage glowed with new lights, welcome lights. And in that warm glow, I knew I had not just built a house, but built myself a home.